feels good to be a part of you. So don't clap and talk to us, and it will be really, it'll be really a very great experience for all of us. I'm quite overwhelmed. I never thought that I'll walk into a hall full of so many people, and so many people are interested in films. Anyway, so thank you for this response. My inspiration, I frankly, because I was thinking about my answer while they were answering, I don't remember any moment of inspiration. And I don't feel any moment where I was inspired to make a film. It was always more a compulsion. It was always more of a compulsion. And film enthusiasts. I mean, I've done that. I've been there. I grew up in this city, and the film festival. In this very hall, film festival, and all that kind of stuff. So I always felt compelled to make a film. I don't remember from what age and when. I think the agents of that compulsion were the films that I saw on Doordarshan, on TV. We had TV in our house in 1974, and Doordarshan at that point, during the 70s and 80s, was screening the best in India, the best all over India, and some of the best from the world. So I remember having a very rich film diet, and that's what compelled me to get into filmmaking. But there is no inspiration, it's a necessity with me. I probably will get inspired to illustrate for kids, which is what I would love to do as something which is not a compulsion. But filmmaking is a compulsion, it's a way of being. And it's not something where I'm saying, oh, I'll now make a film. It's a call of nature.
We get it. They're still clapping.
Good evening, everyone. It doesn't matter whether you clap or not, but it's very integral that you go and see what we're talking about.
That's the producer who's talking. Producers have to make money.
And to add to that, I'd like to say 3rd of May at a theatre near you. And the shows will be listed the day and the week before. Please make sure you go through the newspapers and make sure that you come and see Our Labour of Love. I'm sorry, I won't do that again. What inspires me? I'm obsessed by the Hindi movies. I grew up obsessing about them. Every movie I saw, I was a very strange child. Kids my age did like everything else. You know, they were playing sport, which I was incapable of because of my waistline. They were watching action movies and reading comics. I was watching Guru Dutt. I was watching the magic of Yash Chopra, and I was watching the brilliance of Raj Kapoor unfold on my VHS. And I was just mesmerized by the world of celluloid. And I said that if at all I could, it was like a call to God that, you know, please, if there's one wish you can fulfill my mind, make me a part of the movies in some way or the other. So the movies really did inspire me. And the second thing that inspires me as an adult is really the work of the contemporary filmmakers. So Dibakar Banerjee's brilliance inspires me. Anurag Kashyap's mesmerizing screenplay and narrative style inspires me. Zoya Akhtar's handle on human emotion inspires me. Every time I see a brilliant film, which I feel I'm incapable of making, and trust me, I'm incapable of making many, many brilliant films, those films and those filmmakers and their repertoire of work inspire me.
And this actually leads me to my next question. I think filmmaking has, in a way, become a lot more collaborative of late. I see so many co-productions. You're working with Anurag and Akhtar. Dibakar, I believe you're going to work with Yash Raj Films. That is amazing. I wonder what will come out of that. Zoya, your work, Anurag has helped you with your work as well. I think he's worked on scripts with you, or at least he was in Luck by Chance, yep. Okay, some connection. And how is that? Has it become a lot more collaborative? Are you sort of reaching out to each other, all of you, much more than maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when you began maybe?
Well, there are two kinds of collaborations. The first I would address is the creative collaboration. Like say Zoya writing with Rima is a creative collaboration, or getting inputs from Anurag would be creative. Then there's an economic collaboration. You collaborate with a studio or a production house for a certain reason. Like Anurag had the script and the writer, and they wanted some kind of creative input as well. So we came together, and I believe co-productions and collaborations are the way forward. I'm collaborating with many, many people, and it's need-based. It really depends. Someone brings the money, someone brings the content. But eventually, the whole idea is to put out as many films as possible and work with as many new people. And that's what I do. I'm no longer, I never felt like I would be full of myself and said, oh, I'm Dharma Productions, I won't do that. Eventually, it's not about your branding or about yourself. It's about putting out software. So whatever it takes to put out as many films and as many types of films out for a wide audience, that's the whole endeavor, at least at my end.
Dibakar, how does that work for you? Because you have a very specific sense of the kind of movies you want to make. So is it helpful working with another person who's probably telling you you've spent way too much money or not enough money, or who's in a sense telling you what to do?
I mean, I have a specific sense of the film I would like to make, but I don't have any specific sense about whose money I'm going to use to make it. So I'm quite Catholic, sort of when it comes to that. And I can really take money from anyone and make a film. The thing to understand is that in my case, and my case is very similar, and I'm speaking for many other filmmakers like Anurag, and there are many filmmakers over here, actually. And I will speak for all of them that early on, the kind of films that we make, we are trained, very fortunately, into trying and make it as cheap as possible, without losing any of the quality. A simple mathematical rule for the best kind of filmmaking is that make it the cheapest and make it the best you can. And at that point, you have to treat everyone's money very responsibly. And when you do that, then the people with money start respecting you. And then you can choose the person who will leave you to yourself once he sees that you are respecting his or her money. And that, I think, is the best way of making films. And I've been very fortunate because right from Khosla Ka Ghosla to Oye Lucky, both Khosla Ka Ghosla was an independent producer who came from Delhi, from this very city, and to Oye Lucky, which was made by UTV, to Ekta during Love, Sex or Dhoka, and to PVR during Shanghai. Because the films were made at a cost that they were, I think the studio respected the fact that I was being responsible. And after that, nobody in my life ever told me what to do with my films. All the errors, all the mistakes in my films, and I want to put it on record, have been my own decisions as a co-producer. I have screwed up my own films. Nobody else has, because someone else has paid for it. So I've been very lucky, but so many other filmmakers will repeat what I say. I can tell you that. And that's the way the best films are made.
Zoya?
I've actually been very blessed. I've made 2 films, and they were both with a company called Excel Entertainment, which is basically owned and run by Ritesh Silvani, who's a school friend of mine, and my brother Farhan Akhtar. So I never had to look for funding. I was working in film before both of them, so they always knew I was going to be a filmmaker. Then they decided to make a movie, and as luck would have it, the movie happened before mine. So, I mean, in their heads, I wasn't someone they were taking a chance on. In their head, they was like, oh, she's going to make a movie now, you know, because she was always going to make a movie before us. So I just didn't have that experience. I never had to take my script and, you know, beat the pavements. I mean, I had my own issues with actors, but that's a separate discussion.
Which is what?
Which is, because Luck by Chance required a certain budget, it was a problem to make it because I couldn't cast it. No one wanted to act in that film.
So you told your brother?
No, 7 years later. It was 7 years. I mean, if we had thought of Farhan, it would have been made much earlier. But nobody thought of him, including him. And then I saw a friend of his had shot a film called International Fakir, and Fakir of Venice, sorry. And I saw clips of that. And Rima Kakti actually suggested, why don't you think of Farhan? And when I started talking to Farhan, subsequently Abhishek Kapoor went to him with Rock On. So then it happened.
I think one of the questions that all of us are really concerned about now is that we seem to have become much freer as a society, and I think the CBFC has become much more liberal than it was before. And yet there's this fear of the lunatic fringe. You never know who's going to come out there and attack you for making a film on what issue. So is there a lot of self-censorship that's going on in your minds as filmmakers?
Yes, there is a certain amount of self-censorship, and you do think about things, and when you want to put something in, your producer will say, but this might happen. I mean, the sad part of it is, if you were protected, that wouldn't happen. The censor board is a certified body, I mean, and it's a government body that's been put up there and authorized to certify our films. We listen to them, we do what we're told to do, we make the required cuts if we want to, or take the rating that we get. But once that's gone, we should be protected. Nobody, no political party, no a crazy individual, no offended housewife should get up and be able to stop our film, because it's been passed by the government. So the government needs to protect you. I mean, people can't just go and break theatres because they're offended. A lot of things offend me. I'm not a vandal. So, you know, like you have to be protected. And if the authorities and the powers that be could protect films, then I think people would be far more vocal. I mean, there'd be more honest voices.
Ridhiman, you have a view on this.
Yes, I was a moment ago, talking about political cinema. I don't know how many of you have seen those films, but if we take what are called Rai's Calcutta films and Mrinal Sen's Calcutta films. Mrinal Sen was much more explicitly political than Rai was. It occurs to me that certainly Mrinal Sen's films would probably not have got a release now, with the intolerant and insecure times that we live in. And it is not, we have to remember that it's not only the lunatic fringe. State governments are coming in and intervening in films which the CBFC has passed. Right now, there's a film which is sort of having to undergo this completely unnecessary process, a film from Kolkata, in which the objection has been the apprehension that it might offend, guess who? It might offend Stalinists. That people who are followers of Stalin might be offended. Why? Because there is an innocuous joke at the expense of Stalin. Of the same film, it has been said that it shows the chief minister of a state, and no prizes for guessing which state, in bad light. Why? Because there is authentic television footage of the chief minister intercut with a shot of somebody who's watching, and as he watches, he yawns. And that is taken to be disrespect for the chief minister. And this comes from a board which has been constituted by the government of that state. Again, no prizes for guessing which state. So in a sense, the filmmaking environment, and indeed the entire arts environment, has become much tighter, much less liberal, much more intolerant than it used to be in the 1960s and 1970s.
Dibakar, you suffered with Shanghai as well, or no? No, even with Shanghai, I think there was some amount of confusion that it could have been the chief minister of a particular state.
No.
That.
There was trouble over the lyrics of the song Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
There was, but I think even...
Actually, I didn't.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't.
We'll discuss that later.
Yeah, please.
Presently,
Let me know. I need to know who I've offended. I mean, a year and a half back. I mean, I refuse to be stoned or mauled for something that I've forgotten that I did. So.
I just wanted to add something very briefly, which is, I think, in this festival that's on here, the CBFC is doing something very worthwhile by holding a whole series of, sessions and workshops on the whole whole crazy muddled business of censorship and film certification. What I find significant though is that while there are sessions on, you know, on sort of titillating things like sex, lust, nudity, and violence, there is no session on political censorship.
No, I seriously, jokes apart, I don't remember any issues over the portrayal of the chief minister or anything in Shanghai. What I do remember, and I do remember speaking to my very good friends in the INB ministry and the people who support us while making films, was a very unkind cut that happened in Love, Sex or Dhoka. Love, Sex or Dhoka had two contentious scenes. One was a sex scene, which had a nude man sort of making love in front of the camera, and we were asked to kind of digitize and erase his bums away. So, it is bums, right? You don't say bums, yeah. His cheeks away. Okay, let's put it that way. Yeah. So and that wasn't an issue because for me, I knew that legally a lot of nudity is not allowed, and the censor board is not responsible if not mistaken. It's the Cinematograph Act which defines what you can show in terms of nudity. So if we don't, as people, appeal and agitate to change that act stays by our consent. And since we have consented to that, there is no point in us trying to say, now you can't. That is the law. So that I didn't have any problems with. That was a clear-cut thing, and it didn't hurt the scene. It didn't hurt the scene one bit. The scene was not about nudity or sex. The scene was about something else. What hurt me was in the first film of all those people who've seen Love, Sex or Dhoka. In the first film, the boy who's butchered at the end of the film actually tells his girlfriend that he comes from a so-called lower caste and a designated scheduled caste, and that's how he got admission into a college, but he would have gotten admission anyways because he's very smart. And that line was cut because the censor board at that time felt that by drawing attention to the problem of caste, I would be offending, my film would be offending rather, a lot of people who belong to that caste. And I argued that actually nothing could be more supportive of those people than this line. The film was about a boy being killed for his caste. And if he does not get the chance to say that he belongs to a low caste, it would be rather pointless, isn't it? So that was an unkind cut, and that's the kind of censorship that Ridhiman has so rightly pointed out. We must have a discussion on officially, unofficially, everywhere, because ultimately what will happen is, when they come for you, there will be no one left to protest. Because they will come for those people, you will keep quiet. Then they'll come for those people, you'll still keep quiet. Then they'll come for these people, you'll keep quiet. And when they come for you, there's no one left. Remember this, we need to address this issue very, very deeply.
Karan, as a producer, I think you're in enough legal trouble for all the things that you said.
Considering my perception is that I make love stories and family films, I've only been fighting cases. From the beginning of my career, I want to tell you. And I've done everything. I mean, I have had to combat political parties, censorship issues. There's even been an effigy burnt of mine for my first film, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
That's very good. I think that deserves applause.
Yeah. She thinks that my effigy burning deserves an applause. Thanks, Kaveri. I appreciate. No, it's become absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm afraid to make any kind of statement. I'm afraid to give my point of view, my perspective, even on censorship, the politics of this land. I feel so restricted as a citizen of this country. And I think the fact that I'm always skirting the issue, trying to use the power of the English language or the Hindi language to kind of not say and yet say is very exhausting. And I was promised democracy, but I never got it as a filmmaker. I mean, today, even if I want to sit and make a strong point, a political perspective, produce a film because I may be incapable of directing it, I feel restricted because I feel first I'll have to I have to apparently send my script to the censor authorities. They have to pass whether I should make it at all. And then once I make it, I mean, at the end of the day, we're even combating, like we're making a film. We bought the rights of a film called Shiva, you know, The Immortals of Miluha, and the entire Shiva trilogy written by Amish Tripathi. I'm so worried because I feel I'll be assaulted after that movie and be killed, and I don't know, maybe I'll have to flee to another country. And that's one part of me. But the other part of me wants to really make that film because I believe there's great cinema in there. I mean, I've had to combat a political party at the release of a film, and I felt no one in my industry stood by me at that time. No one. I got support from out of the industry, and we really had to, it was a stressful time. It was the eve of the release, and we never made it in my own state. The state that brought me up, there I'm born and brought up, the state of Maharashtra. It didn't release on the opening weekend. And at the end of the day, I just felt completely alienated by my own fraternity and from people. It was actually the voice of all of you. I remember heartening news visuals of people in Mumbai, in Delhi, across the country, who went and saw the first show of that film, went and spoke against what was happening, and actually empowered my film and made sure that it released in the week. So the power of the people is what Dibakar is talking about. Because if all of you really put your perspective out there and make sure that we as filmmakers are not restricted, because I feel very, very restricted, and it's very unfortunate. You know, this could become an entire session about this topic actually, so I'm going to stop right here. Because just to tell you that we feel very, 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 I would say extremely vulnerable at every point of time. At the release, before the release, post the release, it's always fear. You know, that's the one emotion a filmmaker shouldn't have.
I'd like at this point to ask all of you to raise your hands, whoever wants a question. And yes, just 1 second, just setting the ground rules. Please identify yourself, please stand up when you ask the question and address it to the specific person. And please don't make it too long. Thank you.
My name is Rajiv Soni, I'm a chartered accountant, and I'm moving into the area of filmmaking. I've written a story which is basically about a Muslim girl. And hearing all of you speak, especially the three of you, accomplished my story. A lot of people ask me, what are you doing writing about a Muslim girl in India? How will I make a film out of this if you guys are so scared?
There's no problem, sir, in making a film about a Muslim girl or a Hindu girl or a Christian girl or a Parsi girl. There's absolutely no problem. Yes, I mean, you are making a film about a story that we are scared because we're not saying we're scared. We're saying that we feel restricted at some points of time. But you're more than, I mean, you're completely free, sir, to go ahead and make a film.
No, my question to you, Karan, is that any guidelines for me to follow?
First, is it a good script? That's the first most important thing.
It is.
Whether it's about a Hindu girl or a Muslim girl is secondary. If it's a good film, and you will find someone interested. Studios have development divisions that read every screenplay. If you have written a fantastic screenplay, it will get made. It could be about anything. It could be about this auditorium and it will get made. I mean, at the end of the day, it's important that your screenplay is good. Once it goes to the first stage, it goes to the development division of Yash Raja Dharma or Excel or Eros or UTV. That's the most important thing. Also, Dibakar has something.
Sir.
Actually, a little worried about your script. Because
thank you for saying that, because I'm very worried too.
No, I'm worried about the quality of your script because I don't know anything about it and I don't want to take it for granted. But when you say that my script is about a Muslim girl,
yes,
with that slight tinge of righteousness in your voice about a Muslim girl, I don't know. I do hope that you are writing a story rather than just the fact that the girl is a Muslim and thereby you're trying to prove a point.
So this is what happened, sir.
Don't tell me the story.
I met 15 people in Mumbai and this is what they all told me, so I have decided to make it myself now.
No, that's fine. But there are so many films about Muslim girls being made in the country and in Bombay. So I don't think there is anything special, anything remarkable or anything specially
let's agree to disagree on that, sir.
no, about a Muslim girl. The script, what the story is about, is what you should agitate about.
Shoma, you have a question?
Yeah.
I have a question. I have a question over here.
Shonali, actually. Shonali was director of Amuk. not to belabor the point on censor board, but I really feel I just want to add an important thing here, because as we're celebrating the 100 years of Indian cinema, I mean, I think one of the things which is absolutely absurd is the complete infantilization of our audiences by a completely backward feudal censor board. And we really need to look at both popular means as well as political means as to how to solve this problem. Now, my film, Amu, is screening in the next hall right here. And if you know or don't know, this was hugely censored. Why? It didn't have any sex or violence. But it was censored because the censor board, you have to go meet the censor board when your film is screened. And I said, why are you giving it an A certificate, firstly? They said, because why should young people know about a history? This film is about the genocide that took place in '84. Why should young people know about a history that is better buried and forgotten? And that is the most outrageous statement a censor board or a government or anybody can make, that why shouldn't we know about our own history? A history of violence in which children have been killed in that violence. And yet other children growing up are to be blind to it, are to forget it. So that's the most important point. Second, they blanked out anything that talked about the government. And now we're, it's like 25 years or more, approaching the 30th anniversary of the genocide, and we're still trying to cover up since partition, one of the most massive massacres that took place in our country. So I really want to push this question of what do we do about a censor board that has the right to do this? And even in terms of sexuality, my next film, which I'm in the middle of shooting right now, is to do with sexuality. And again, I say that why are we infantilizing our audiences? That what business does the government have to say that, other than giving a rating, to say that you can show it on television or not show it on television, it affects your funding. If you cannot guarantee a UA certificate, you're not going to get funding. And that means you are unable to explore difficult subjects in this country. And I refuse to do that as a filmmaker. So I think it's a really important question that we as filmmakers and audiences need to really push the boundaries here, because otherwise we're just going to remain stagnant when we have an enormous history, as Jiti Manda said, of films that push the boundaries in the 60s and 70s, and we are being tied right now from doing that. Yeah.
It's not a response. It's a support and a modified support. It's just that what I said earlier. Having come into contact with censor board, I have realized that the process of censoring depends on two things, as you would know. First is how the censor board at that point on that screening sees the film, because it could be a picking of arbitrary. How many people come for that one screening? Five people picked from all over who actually are supposed to represent the normal people, the normal audiences, who come and pass judgment over your film. But what we have heard is that sometimes these 5 or 6 or 10 people who come probably are not as neutral a representation of the audience as we would like it to be, but are appointees of various interests and various lobbying groups. And my modification about this is that it's not simple. It's simple to blame the government, but I believe, Shonali, that we ourselves as people are as much to blame. We have lobbying groups, we have an extremely conservative and a very, very intolerant core within our very body politic and within our very citizenry, which stops us from doing many things, including the genocide of '84, including many other actions of genocide in our country, where I've seen we as people stand by and silently and tacitly give our silent consent to that genocide. I would, sorry, is it going away from the, so we are as much to blame. We are as much to blame. We are a cruel society, we are a conservative society, and we have given our quiet consent to our people being killed. So we have to take that blame. That's all I'm saying.
I have a question. Excuse me, ma'am.
I can't see you.
Yeah, I have a question. Apart from the censor board, what do you think are the biggest challenges that the Indian cinema is facing today? Do you think that the Indian cinema today is more star-driven rather than character-driven, which is something not to be very proud of? Thank you.
I think apart, of course, from what we discussed, the biggest challenge Indian cinema is really, and I don't think it's a challenge, I think we're in a phase of change. I think creative challenges are always, I think, the most important challenges that we face. I think, but we're finally breaking that. With the last 5 or 6 years, I think the kind of cinema that has evolved and is doing well, and more power to the audiences who made that happen. Especially last year, if you saw that there was like a variety of films that released. You know, from Gangs of Wasseypur to Shanghai to Kahani to Vicky Dona. These are the films that are going to eventually kill and annul the star system. It's on its way to happen. Eventually, the film will be the hero and the superstar, the director will be the superstar, and the audience will be the biggest superpower. And that is what we're really aiming towards. We're actually heading towards a new age, golden age, which is happening because there are new voices, new ideologies, and even finally, studios and funding institutions have realized the importance of creating good cinema, because eventually, the cost versus profit, even if I talk economically, the cost versus profit ratio works much better. A Kahani will make a studio more money than an Agnipath will. Eventually, the profit coming into the production house will be not as much as what a Kahani or a Vicky Dona will do. So these slightly small budget films, but with large cinematic aspirations, brilliant content and great cinema will do that much better. And eventually, thankfully, this star system that we are all finding exceptionally laborious for various reasons will come to a screeching halt.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry, I want to go back to the point that we were discussing earlier.
Very quickly, because I think we've spent quite a lot of time on that.
Well, just to say that actually...
Please identify yourself. Sorry.
I'm Ida Bhaskar. I'm a board member of the CBFC. I'm a professor of film studies. But I'm not a member of the advisory committee, which means I don't do the day-to-day certification. The board does more policy things, and I want to speak up for the CBFC at this point. All of you who've had films have gone to the CBFC in the last 2 years, and I'm sure your experiences have been different from Shonali's at the time of Amu. But that's not what I want to say. This morning session of the CBFC workshop was called We the Offended. The presentation was done by myself, and it was actually about censorship, and it was actually about the kind of pressure points in our society today, which forces various kinds of cuts, even on the CBFC. Now, and I gave several examples. It was a historical presentation that looked at this issue historically and looked at this moment of the 60s and 70s and even the 80s when something like Tamas was telecast on Doordarshan and I showed various clips. What I want to say, and I agree with Dibakar here, what I want to say, and I'm very sorry that someone like Karan should feel so afraid, and I sympathize with that, but actually we need to identify what is the problem. The problem really is that the CBFC can give a certificate, whatever that certificate is, and of course if the filmmaker is not happy with the certificate that given in the first round by the examining committee, he or she should go to revising committee, because the revising committee is chaired by board members and the committee is different, and there's always a chance of getting more hearing, and a hearing that will understand the point of view that you are making. So I would urge all filmmakers who are not happy to please go to revising committee and FCAT with their projects. But the question of fear, and I'm very, very sorry to hear that, but I agree with Dibakar, that is a problem in our political system today. So that in a case like Vishwarupam or Arakshan before that, after the CBFC has given a certificate, why should any state government, and Kangal Malsat in the case of Bengal, and I would like to name the film, and the issue of Calcutta CBFC is very particular because of your government there, I'm afraid. And why should a state government
want
has
to
to
say
take
it's not mine.
responsibility?
No, not yours. Not yours. I accept that, absolutely. But I do want to say that, and this is an issue that has been raised with the ministry again and again, and the minister, the current minister INB has himself looked at this question of how the CBFC, how a modus operandi can be worked out. When once a CBFC certificate is given, state governments do not have the power to, and the argument about do not have the power to stop the release of a film. And actually the law and order problem is all bogus, because frankly any state government can control a law and order situation if it happens. And my name is Khan. I mean, all these examples really are examples when there was no political will. And hence, Audiences obviously supported your case, and actually, none of us should believe that because this is just pre-censorship. I mean, pre-release of the film, you cannot actually take a position that this film is going to create a law and order situation. It is the business of state governments everywhere to support the film that has got a censor. That's what I want to say.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to take the discussion forward a little and ask you about the point we were discussing earlier, that in a way cinema has become less exclusive, perhaps, Mumbai cinema especially, because you bring with you the rich experience of working in regional cinema. We have to call it regional cinema, we don't have any other word for it. But do you feel it's become less inclusive? Do you feel that?
Well, I'm not a film scholar or a daughter. CBFC, I know they're being painted as the villain of the piece quite unnecessarily, I think, but CBFC comes back to this because this is just anecdote. Yesterday's session, as I said, and I was interested in these sessions, was about, you know, nice, yummy things like last kiss, nudity, and so on. The presentation began with a wonderful, very passionate kiss way back in the 1930s between Himanshu Rai and Dibakar. Himanshu Rai was prone and Dibakar was slobbering all over him. And then, you know, the presenter said that after that the kiss made a sort of withdrawal, and the kiss reappeared in Hindi cinema in the 80s with Amir Khan and Karishma Kapoor. Except that, in 1979, in a film called 36 Chaurani Lane, Aparna Sen and I the kiss. It led me to think that if you're not part of Bombay cinema, you're nothing. You know, things either happen in the cinema in Bombay or they don't happen anywhere. Now, I don't mean this as a personal criticism, but what worries me is the overpowering influence of the cinema of Bombay, whether it is getting identified with Indian cinema. I hesitate and I step back from using the term cultural imperialism, but whether Indian cinema is becoming one monolith which identifies with the cinema of Bombay and regional voices and identities. Can I finish? I know, you know, you're very enthusiastic. Just give me a chance to finish, please. Whether the regional voices, regional identities are getting lost. Let me give you another example. You know, again, 60s and 70s, I hark back to that. We, working in Kolkata, knew on an everyday basis the work of people like Adur Gopalakrishnan and other people from Kerala, from Tamil Nadu, from Maharashtra. Now it's like closed islands. I was recently working in a Malayalam film of a young filmmaker. This was the second film he was making. And again, this is anecdotal. And a young girl who was an assistant from the London Film School, so she knows her cinema. She was talking to me, and I was amazed that I knew so little about contemporary cinema in Kerala, and the other way around. When I was chatting with them and telling them about what is happening in Bengal and in Calcutta, nobody, because a lot has been happening in the last 5 or 6 years, nobody knew a thing. So are we becoming little isolated islands? And this is a question, not an assertion. This is a question. Does the pervasive influence of the cinema of Bombay, I hate the word like a lot of people do, I hate the word Bollywood, but does the cinema of Bombay have something to do with this? And if this continues, then are we going ever to have a really heterogeneous national cinema?
मेरा सवाल करण से है. एक्चुअली हम लोग अभी 100 years of Indian cinema जो है हम इस पैनल डिस्कशन का टॉपिक है, तो उसी से रिलेटेड मेरा सवाल है कि पहले इंडियन सिनेमा ने हमें बहुत अच्छी फिल्में दी है, पुराने समय से लेके अभी तक काफ़ी अच्छी फिल्में भी दी है, लेकिन आजकल जो भी फिल्में आ रही है उसमें जो भी नया मतलब एक्ट्रेस आ रही है वो मतलब डायरेक्ट अपना मतलब अपने आप को ये मतलब फेमस करने के लिए मतलब अपने जो वल्गैरिटी की तरफ जो जाती हैं तो उससे समाज पे बुरा असर पड़ता है। और जो मतलब ये आजकल का
एक मिनट, आपने ये कौन सी फिल्में देखी?
नहीं, अभी जो भी नई एक्ट्रेस आ रही है सारा इस तरफ ही जा रहा है और मीडिया में जितना हाँ मैं अपना क्वेश्चन इसलिए पूछ रहा हूँ
आपका सवाल क्या है?
मेरा सवाल ये है
मेरा
सवाल ये है कि अभी जो इंडिया में महिलाओं के प्रति अत्याचार बढ़ रहा है उसके लिए इंडियन सिनेमा जिम्मेदार है, क्योंकि वो अभी जो फिल्में आ रही है जिस प्रकार की फिल्में आ रही है
मैं फिर से कह रहा हूँ आपका सवाल क्या है? ये तो सवाल था नहीं ना।
जोया, आप प्लीज।
आपने कौन सी फिल्म देखी है लास्ट जिधर आपको ये नो आई वांट टू टॉक टू हिम। आपको लगता है कि अगर फिल्मों में सब औरतें साड़ी पहनेंगी तो क्राइम चले जाएगा? आपको ये लगता है? क्योंकि अगर ऐसा होता तो कोई फिल्म मेकर विल नॉट रिफ्यूज टू डू दिस। Obscenity and immorality, I mean, and you are going to tell me morality? Morality according to whom?
Which is the last feature film you have seen?
Which film did you see?
What have you seen? What have you seen that has offended your so-called
morality? Which film
morality?
offended you?
Sir, there are two kinds of rights. You have a right to make movies, which is one of the fundamental rights instilled under the Constitution, Article 19.
We don't want to know the Constitution.
We know our rights.
We know the Constitution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Because Karan sir talked about a democracy. Because on the same day, the government can put the restrictions, but about the audience have also right to have a content which is not only full of obscenity.
Sir, you have a right. You have one right.
Yes.
Your right to
So
not buy the ticket. That's your right. And you, I don't know why, but everyone of the audience that has asked us these questions have always bought tickets to movies with item songs.
No,
I'm wondering.
I'm also concerned. I'm also concerned when the censor board thought to.
Did you see Agnipath? Have you seen Agnipath?
Yes.
Why?
Why did you see it?
No, my question.
You saw the promo.
Who
You
asked
let
you to
me
see
speak.
it?
You let me speak. You saw the promo of Chikni Chameli. You got offended. Your morals were torn. Why have you bought the ticket?
No, I'm not saying.
Have you seen Dabang 2?
You are then a rapist.
Have you seen Dabang 2? Have you seen Dabang 2? No. People like you are very scary and very dangerous because you have this idea of what Indian women and the fabric of society, but are the first to run to the theatre. So you are offended, don't buy our tickets. Don't watch our film.
Zoya, I hope you have a sensible
Karan sir,
question.
Zoya, Karan sir, Dibakar sir,
excuse me.
Yes, मेरा नाम डॉक्टर रजनीकांत है और मैं बनारस से आया हूँ। इस फिल्म फेस्टिवल में भाग लेने के लिए मैं बनारस से आया हूँ और हमारे चूंकि बहुत सीनियर लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं और एक जनरेशन के लोग भी हैं, हम लोग ये चाहते हैं कि आने वाले समय में फिर से क्या जो समानांतर सिनेमा था, जो पैरेलल सिनेमा था, उस तरह की चीजें फिर क्या लौटने की स्थिति में है जिसमें कि रूरल एरियाज के इश्यूज को भी एड्रेस किया जाए।
Sir, I want to say one thing. Sir, you get who you elect. The films that are made are the films that you are paying for. If you stop paying for films you don't want to watch, they won't be made. Producers will make films you want to see and where the money goes. There are a lot of films being made on rural problems. I mean, a film called Chakraview, people didn't watch it. Why are more people watching watching Agnipath in Shanghai? Explain it to me.
This is an important question. Can I just take it a step forward? Let's not turn this into the Lok Sabha. Can I just sort of take this a step forward? You know, I think there are regional differences. For instance, in Bengal, very few rural-based films are being made. There are socio-economic reasons for that. On the other hand, the majority of films in Tamil Nadu are based on rural subjects. There are also reasons for that. Now, just yesterday, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this filmmaker. He makes non-fiction films. An activist filmmaker named Sanjay Kak, who's a friend of mine. He made a film called Jasn-e-Kashmir about the that's right. He's recently completing a film called Red Ant Dreams about the militant problem in various states. Now, he was telling me that there is a group called the Cinema of Resistance, Pratirodh Ki Cinema, and they show films in Banaras, Gorakhpur, Balia to very receptive audiences. So it is wrong to say, we may not see it on the surface or in the mainline dailies, but it is wrong to say that the politically aware cinema has disappeared. It is there, maybe it has gone underground, it is gone sort of below the surface. It is also the case that cinema consciousness, although again we might not see it on the surface, that cinema consciousness has grown outside of what we call the main urban centers. And there are people in small towns who are enormously conscious politically and who are receptive to the kind of cinema that I think you were trying to talk about.
The lady in yellow, please quickly. And now we just have 2-3 questions, so
yes,
please keep your questions very short.
My name is Arti, I'm a student of cinema. First of all, I feel that politicians are not bashed as badly on any other medium as they are on TV. You know, I'm excluding the film content on television. I'm looking at even news content or even entertainment content. Firstly, why isn't that questioned? You know, TV gets away with a lot of stuff that cinema doesn't, being, you know, probably a medium that reaches into more households. But cinema, I feel, is a more ancient medium or a more older medium than television. A lot of stuff is on television also, which could offend political sensibilities.
What's the question?
My question is that, first of all, has anybody wondered or questioned the fact that why doesn't the censor board look into the politics of representation on TV as well? Why does cinema have to bear the brunt of the ire of politicians as well? Secondly, my other question is that if there is a politics of representation that the censor board does not agree with, do filmmakers, or I'm not talking about you, but generalizing the issue, do they question the fact that, you know, or do they still stick their necks out in terms of the kind of content they're producing, or would they like to toe a line?
Karan, as someone who's worked in TV and film, perhaps you should quickly answer that question.
I think the lady has raised a very valid point. You see, there are political ramifications between TV news and the governance, which is something that we are soft targets and don't come into the periphery of that thought process. That's the internal tussle, and you see, and if TV news is capped, then we are then no longer a democracy even as terminology goes, because even right now it's an artificial democracy of sorts, because we're not really an active democracy by the quintessential term of it. So television news channels, if they are capped, then we are an official dictatorship. And they cannot be capped because there is that internal tussle between the political party, and that is a whole different ball game. Films are soft targets. We can be attacked, we can be mauled, we can be mutilated to bits and shreds, and we have to just take it and endure it. Unfortunately, we are the soft targets and will remain. So that is to answer your first question. The second question was? Yeah. There's a restless person.
Yeah, the question I wanted to ask was to Karan. It's me here, Yogesh. I represent the telecom industry. We've seen television being a great screen of revenue for movies that are being made right now. What about, Karan, you leveraging the internet or the desktop screens and the mobile screens? Because if you really look at the Sundance Festival, for cinema, and we talked about regional cinema, for all of this, those two streams are very important. So what are, and you monetize things fantastically, be it the TV. What's your thoughts about these two streams, the desktop and the mobile for movies?
I actually would not be able to give you the right. Do you have Dibakar, an answer to this? Because technically I would be not.
Yeah, I mean, how does this tie into the issue of censoring? The fact that
revenue.
Can we? Yeah, I mean, it's where it's heading. It's where it's heading. I mean, soon there'll be, mobile and desktop content, and movies will be directly given to the audience through its download. It's coming. It's coming. So yes, we'll make a little more money out of that.
These are definitely clauses in our contracts as well, and we are paving the way for it. It will happen, and that boom time will happen very soon. In fact, as we speak, there's a whole process working towards it.
Questions on censoring, please. Questions on censoring, proscription.
No, let's please get away from that. We've been on that for 2 months, for too long.
Last question.
My question, actually, I don't know why people are scared of my question, because they have given me the mic and taken away the mic from me. I just want to request and thank you for allowing me. सबकी तरफ से मैं आप सबका हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूं और आपको थैंक यू बोलता हूं कि बहुत बढ़िया ये 100 इयर्स का आपका प्रोग्राम था। हमको जो सोच भी नहीं सकते सपने में देखने को, वो वाली पिक्चरें मिली। अभी मैं धर्म जो पिक्चर थी, इसको कई बार देख चुका हूं, हर बारी मैं देखता हूं। ये मिस्टर करण जोहर से एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन है कि जब वहाँ पे मूवी शुरू हुई तो वहाँ पे खचाखच भरा हुआ था, बैठने की जगह नहीं थी, नीचे बैठे थे लोग। लेकिन जैसे ही आप लोगों का पता चला कि आप लोग यहाँ आ रहे हैं, ऐसा क्यों हुआ कि वही लोग जो वहाँ पे सीट के लिए लड़े थे वो यहाँ की तरफ आ गए? आगे जो 100 साल है, आपके मेंटर की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं, मिस्टर यश जौहर, जिनके लिए आप रो चुके हैं और उनके लिए आज उनका दिल भी रोया होगा कि उनकी ऑडियंस उनको छोड़ के आप एक दूसरी छोटी सी ऑब्जर्वेशन है। It's very ironical that we all are seeing and watching these Hindi movies. We are making money, people like you, from Hindi movies, but we are talking in English about Hindi movies. This is because I have made the movie I request you to please talk in Hindi or Hindi movies.
I have a problem with that. I am not, although I've worked in Hindi films, I am not completely familiar with Hindi. I wouldn't be able to express myself as well in Hindi as in English. So is it all right for me to speak in Bengali here? Is that all right? Is that acceptable? Or are we?
But you would understand. और ये हम जो अंग्रेजी में बोलते हैं उसका एक कारण ये है कि भारतवर्ष में इतनी सारी भाषाएं हैं, शायद एक अंग्रेजी एक भाषा है जो सबकी तरफ जाती है, लेकिन मैं आपसे सहमत हूं, अंग्रेजी को अपने आप को बड़ा दिखाने का औजार बनाने की कोशिश बहुत बुरी कोशिश है। ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। या तो सारे स्कूलों में हम अंग्रेजी सिखाएं या सारे स्कूलों में हम अपने भारत की सारे प्रादेशिक भाषाएं सिखाएं, वो अच्छा है, लेकिन अंग्रेजी को बड़प्पन का एक तरीका बना के हम सबको ऊंचा दिखाने की जो कोशिश होती है भारतवर्ष में, वो गलत है। मैं आपसे सहमत हूं, लेकिन ये बंगाल से हैं, इनको किसी एक भाषा की जरूरत है जिससे वो आपसे बात कर सके। ये हिंदी नहीं समझ सकते, आप अंग्रेजी समझ सकते हैं, इनको वो अधिकार है।
समझ तो लेता हूँ, बोल भी लेता हूँ,
मैं विड्रॉ करता हूँ। इनसे आप खुद बात करिए।
आई थिंक अच्छा, आप बिल्कुल लास्ट सवाल है, इसके बाद हम समाप्त करते हैं। जी
Thanks, Kaveri ji. I hope I will not disappoint. I am a lover of cinema, but I also am a
जल्दी से करिए
obsessed with
सवाल।
the years age because I remember everything for the last 57 years. Everything with years. There arises a serious question which I checked out. What is the date? What normally will become the date for a movie? I'll give you 3 major examples. Ride is one major example which you will always read
आप बहुत
1965.
लंबा सवाल कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है।
But it was released in 66. This Desh Mein Ganga Maitri released in 61, but censor certificate 1960. I have just seen Pakiza is normally said as 1972. I read somewhere yesterday 1971. This might lead to a serious question sometime. What will be the year of a movie? Whether it will be the
सेंसर सर्टिफिकेट और द रिलीज डेट.
रिलीज बाकी सवाल इनसे आप करिए जब ये इनको एयरपोर्ट जाना है, आप गाड़ी में बैठ के इनसे सवाल करें. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत अच्छा डिस्कशन था. Thank you very much. We thank our eminent panelists for taking time out and gracing the Central Film Festival with their presence and sharing their significant views, experiences and challenges to all of us, ladies and gentlemen. We thank our esteemed panelists and our moderator.
Before criticizing the censor board, अपने आप पे झांकिए. हम क्या अपने आप को सेंसर करते हैं नहीं, वो देखिए. सेंसर बोर्ड अपने आप लाइन पे आ जाएगा.
Thank you very much. Once again, a huge round